One of my favorite things to talk about all winter long has been, on your farm, are you reacting and are you thinking logically, or are you basing your decisions on emotion?
Well, okay. There's going to be some emotion involved when there are weeds, diseases, or insects in one of my fields, because
yeah, but there's
I'm
a lot
see
more
them out there
emotion.
and I'm going to be excited about getting them out of my field.
Well,
but you have to do that cost effectively.
But
too.
whatever you say, everybody right now is just panicking because all that happens every day is you turn on the news and oh, things are just terrible and the world's coming to an end.
That's your first problem.
And
turn the news off. Why do you need to look at that? It's crazy. All they want to talk about is depressing things. Just watch our show because we're talking about fun things like farming. Now, Brian, let's not get depressed about diseases, weeds, and insects. You can afford to control them this year.
And this is
the prices
my whole
are
point.
not crazy out there. Don't get all worried and panicked that, oh man, the crop prices have fallen. I probably won't even be able to afford to protect my crop. That is not true. You're going to be just fine. So let's look at each one of these things.
Yeah, but you need to run the numbers on your farm. So we're not going to sit here and say, oh, in every case, everything's going to work out. You got to run your own numbers. So we'll run through some numbers that we have off our farm, and you can see how these compare for you on your farm.
Okay, well, let's talk about disease control first, because this is one of the things that for a lot of guys I know in our area, they look at this as the last thing. They want to kill the weeds because everybody can see that. They want to kill the bugs because they know the insects will just destroy their crop. But the diseases are something that, well, I don't know. A lot of times you can't see it, and I've got to spray my fungicide before that disease is present, and it seems to be a little tougher decision to make. So let's just talk about disease control. On our farm, the last 4 years, we've been running trials with half-rate fungicides, full-rate fungicides, and then no treatment at all to see if it's worth using fungicides and at which rate. For us, where we're in the western corn belt, so we don't have tremendous rainfall. So for us, the disease pressure is not as heavy as it is when you go further south in the country and further east where there's more rainfall. So for us, we're able to use a half rate of fungicide in many cases, especially in wheat, but also in soybeans.
Well, when we talk about this half-rate fungicide thing, you say, well, how much is that going to cost me this year? I look at these fungicides as they're going to be somewhere in the range of $4.50 to $7. So for easy figuring, let's just do this. Let's say you pick one of the fungicides that happens to cost $5.50. So on wheat, if wheat new crop for 2009 is worth $5.50, basically I'd have to have 1 bushel back. So as long as I pick that fungicide that cost me $5.50, as long as you're gaining 1 bushel, it's great. And in most cases, you look at what the studies have shown, 3 to 5 bushels back from using a half-rate fungicide. So that should be a good investment on wheat on your farm.
With soybeans, let's look at fungicide application there. With new crop beans right now, they're somewhere around the ballpark of $8 per bushel. So let's say you spent $6 an acre on a half-rate fungicide that you're going to mix in with your Roundup application or with your insecticide application through the summer. So you don't need to spend any extra money on application. You only need 3/4 of a bushel if beans are worth $8 to pay for that treatment. So are you going to gain 3/4 of a bushel using a half rate of fungicide in beans? On our farm, we've shown an average of 2 or 3 bushels gained over the last 4 years. So yes, that's a no-brainer, slam dunk decision. It's still worth putting fungicide on my soybeans.
One of the most important things I like to look at here, and a lot of people will bring up, is, well, you got to figure something for the cost of the application. No, I don't, because I'm already out there on wheat spraying my broadleaf herbicide or my grass herbicide. In soybeans, I'm already out there spraying Roundup or maybe Select Max for volunteer corn, or maybe I'm controlling aphid, so I'm already out there anyway. All you have to do is throw the fungicide in. The key thing is making sure that you're there at the right timing. With wheat, you want to be doing it around the time you're spraying for broadleaves. With soybeans, R3 is about the best time. So when you first start seeing pods on your soybean plants, that's when you should be out there hitting it with fungicide.
What we like to do with any of the inputs is run a return on investment no matter what we're looking at. So I'll give you an example for weed control in corn. Now what we do, rather than just using Roundup on our Roundup Ready corn post-emerge, we like to make another trip and put a pre-emerge herbicide like Harness down. Let's say we used 1.5 pints of Harness and it cost about $9 an acre, and we add $2 an acre in for application for us spraying it out there ourselves. So we've got a total of $11 an acre that we're going to apply Harness on the field with. So you have $11 an acre, divide that by $3.50 for a bushel of corn, which is approximately what you can get cash for new crop corn. So take 11 divided by 350, that figures out about 3.1 bushels of corn you need to gain more than where you just did Roundup post-emerge in your corn. So on average on our farm, we've been getting about an 8 bushel gain on corn by putting a pre out. So 8 bushels times $3.50, we'll gain $28 an acre by putting that product on. Again, remember it cost us $11. So 28 minus $11, that's a $17 net gain. Divided by the $11 we invested, that's 155% net return on investment. And when you figure we put that out in April or May and we get the crop harvested 6 months later, that's 310% APR return on investment. That's fantastic. When you run numbers like that, it really helps put in perspective the decisions you need to make.
Insects. Should you control insects on your farm? Here again, just run the numbers. Like wheat is one that I'm always talking to people about. Let's say that you wanted to run out there with some Warrior or Silencer, Asana, something like that, and it costs you $5 an acre. You can throw it right in with your broadleaf herbicide or maybe your grass herbicide, something like that. So if you spend $5, a bushel of wheat is worth $5.50, you'd have to have 0.9 bushels back. Well, most of the time, if you just scout your fields before you spray, if you see even a few bugs out there, you should gain 2-3 bushels back by spraying insecticide. Insecticide is not very commonly used in wheat, and I just think it's a big mistake in a lot of cases. I'm not saying always. Just scout your fields and you'll find out the return on investment's pretty good. It's the same kind of deal with soybeans. Even if, let's say you have to make an extra trip, you spend $2 for the application, you spend $5 for the insecticide, but you're going to control soybean aphids with that. Well, if that only costs you $7 total, the 5 plus the 2, a bushel of beans is worth $8. That's, again, 0.9 bushels to the acre. Well, if you go spray aphids, you should gain several bushels to the acre. It's still a good return.
So like we discussed at the start of this topic, you don't want to panic and think, oh man, prices have fallen on my crops and now I can't afford to control weeds or insects or diseases. In many cases, the return on investment is great, and you may even consider about doing a little better job on some of these things to try and get more bushels this year to make it pay on your farm.
But here's the biggest reason why, because if you look at what our commodity prices are today, they're still not that bad compared to the 30-year average. If you start talking about new crop corn for 09, $3.50, soybeans $8, wheat $5.50. Those are pretty good levels. And yeah, fertilizer, it quadrupled in price in 2 years. That's a whole separate conversation. With a lot of these crop protection products, they're the same. Some of them are even less, like the insecticides. They're actually cheaper than they were a year ago. So everybody thinks, oh, everything went up. No, insecticides are cheaper than a year ago. With a lot of the herbicides, they're only up just a little bit. Same thing with the fungicides. Run the numbers on your farm before you just go react on emotion and say, oh, I got to cut everything. Run the numbers. You don't want to miss out on good returns on investment.
Well, one thing that will provide a return is controlling our weed of the week, and it's coming up next.